Let's get joined up. This week's show is sponsored by Bandcamp.com, an online record store and music community where passionate fans discover, connect with, and directly support the artists they love. There's thousands of bands and artists on there, including my band, the Wry Dogs, whose second album, Pigs Might Fly, is out right now. Here's a quick snippet of the title track, which is also available on Spotify, Amazon, and Apple Music.
Because your eyes may be weeping, but your conscience is sleeping. So baby, don't you cry. Your faces are drying and you say...
It's totally free to join Bandcamp, and as the Wry Dogs are brand new members, we're now looking to grow our fan base, so your support would be greatly appreciated. Just search the Wry Dogs, that's W-R-Y Dogs, and hit the follow button. Right, now we can cue the theme tune.
Joined up writing.
Hello and welcome to the Joined Up Writing podcast, where a little procrastination can go a long way. I'm Wayne Kelly and it's episode 156 with contemporary women's fiction writer Fiona Collins. It's an inspirational interview with a writer that prides herself on enjoying the process and having fun. She never forgets why she started writing in the first place, and after 6 books, she's clearly still having a great time. Speaking of which, I've been having a great time on holiday for the past couple of weeks, eating and drinking too much, but enjoying the well-earned rest. I didn't do as much work on the novel as I would have liked, but I did do lots of thinking and plotting, and after inspiration from another writer friend, I've come up with a new opening for the novel. It will essentially be a prologue, which I know a lot of people try to dissuade us from writing, but I think it'll make the beginning of the book more compelling, lay the foundations for more plot points later on, and strengthen the motivation for my protagonist. Now I just need to stop thinking about it and actually write the damn thing. Before I went on holiday, I managed to release a new album with my band, the Wry Dogs, and we've had great independent review from a music discovery site, I Don't Hear a Single. I'm really proud of the album and I'd love some of your feedback, so do check it out and let me know what you think. Search the Wry Dogs, that's W-R-Y Dogs, on your music platform of choice, or you can find us on bandcamp.com. So that's what I've been up to, but what about you? You know I love to hear from you all, so do drop me a line. I try to reply to every message, and it's brilliant to hear what you're up to, what you think works or doesn't with the show, or if there's anything you'd like to hear more of in future episodes. The best way you can get in touch is via email, wayne@waynekellywrites.com, but you can also tweet me at JUPodcast or drop me a line on the FB page. Also, don't forget to join the email mailing list at joinedupwriting.co.uk. It's totally free. You get a couple of downloadable goodies when you signed up, and you'll be the first to find out about upcoming shows and events, so, you know, what's not to like? It literally takes seconds. Right, let's get to today's interview with Fiona Collins. So Fiona grew up in an Essex village, and after stints in Hong Kong and London, she returned to the Essex countryside where she lives with her husband and 3 children. She's got a degree in film and literature, and she's had many former careers, including TV presenting in Hong Kong, traffic and weather presenter for the BBC, and she's worked as a film and TV extra. She writes contemporary women's fiction, and her latest book, Summer in the City, is out right now. So enjoy the chat, and I'll pop back at the end for a sign-off.
Joined up writing.
Okay, thanks a million, Fiona, for joining me on Joined Up Writing. Really appreciate it. So why don't we just start off just by telling us how things are going, and tell us where you're speaking from.
I'm speaking from my little study at the back of the house. So I've got like a tiny window in front of me. I've got the view of like the back of a bay tree. But yeah, this is where I sit for hours every day. And yeah, things are fine with me. I've got a book out that came out recently, Summer in the City. Came out ebook and paperback a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, that's all going well.
Oh, sounds great. Well, why don't you start off by telling us about that book, Summer in the City? Tell us the premise.
So basically, it's about a father and a daughter who, for their own personal reasons, haven't left their London flat for years. So they're both reclusive. They basically don't do anything. So Prue is the main character. She has basically just lost all confidence in life. She hasn't worked for many years. She doesn't leave the flat. Her father is blind. He lost all his confidence when he was unable to continue having guide dogs many years ago. And so it's the two of them in their flat in Chalk Farm in London, with the whole world sort of outside their doorstep that they don't go out into unless it's like an appointment, or they have to go out. So they've got this whole world sort of on their doorstep that they're not experiencing. And you would maybe think that they would have each other to talk to, but they don't really talk. So as well as not being out in the world, they also don't really communicate. But something happens at the beginning of the book to change all that. And they come up with a plan to go on various day trips around London. And they're both reluctant. They both don't really want to, but they decide to give it a go. And as the trips go on, and Prue's guiding her father around the city, they gradually reconnect, and various things happen, including the chance of a romance for Prue. And it's an uplifting book.
Yeah.
The characters are, in a completely different situation at the end to how they are in the beginning.
It sounds great. So it sounds like a really nice setup. So do you remember kind of what kicked the idea off for you in the first place?
I wanted to write about a woman who doesn't do anything. So often for the starting point of a character, it's, what do they do?
Uh-huh.
And I wanted the answer for Prue to be, well, she does nothing.
Uh-huh.
And then I got the idea to write about a father and daughter. And then I had to give them both a reason why they weren't sort of engaging with the world. And then I took it from there, really. My ideas don't sort of come to me fully formed. They kind of start with a little snippet of something, and then, things kind of evolve.
Yeah, and obviously there's kind of a bit of relevance in terms of with some of the themes in the book in terms of obviously what we've been going through for the past 18 months and the fact that we're kind of opening up now and we're all being encouraged to get back out there. Do you think that readers will be able to kind of better relate to Prue and Vince's story because of that?
I think so. I mean, obviously I wrote it. I had no idea what was coming. And it's kind of, it's sort of strange and opportune, really, that, well, I wouldn't even use the word opportune. It's just a coincidence, really, that, as the world's opening up for everybody, that's what they're experiencing. Literally, I suppose they were in kind of a self-imposed lockdown, the pair of them.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just sort of gradually stepping outside their front door and coming out like we are. And
I think it's, am I right in thinking that it's your 6th book that you've had published? Is that right?
It is, yeah, the 6th one, yes.
And how did the experience of writing this one compare to the others? I mean, does it get any easier? Was it just different?
I would say that I just have enjoyed all the books that I've written. So I wouldn't say it was a different experience. Each book that I write, I sort of come at anew. And I just really enjoy myself. So once I've decided on the story, and once I get going, that's when I think, right, it's, I think that the deciding on the idea, because you have lots of ideas, some you sort of discard, the others you go with. Once you've decided, right, that is the idea, I just immerse myself in it and just enjoy myself, really. So it wasn't different to any of my other experiences. I have a nice time with all of them, really.
Well, that's refreshing to hear, because usually people just talk about how agonising it was and it never gets any easier, and oh my God, I didn't enjoy writing it, but I'm glad that I've written it, so that's nice to hear, actually.
Yes, I don't have any sort of angst, really, about writing, because it's just something that I really enjoy doing. I like my own company. I'm really happy to just, sit by myself literally for hours. Just writing.
Perfect. It sounds great.
So, yeah.
And in terms of the fact that Vince was is blind in the book, is that anything that you've kind of got any personal experience with in terms of knowing people that have had that experience? Did you have to do a lot of research around that?
I did a lot of research. So I got the sort of idea of that because a few years ago I was sitting in Paddington Station with my children about to catch a train down to Wiltshire. And a blind man approached our table and asked for some help to be guided to the exit.
Mm-hmm.
So I got up, obviously, and helped him to the exit. And I just had the thought, what if he'd sort of asked me to take him further, into London or, to his destination? How would that have been? And then basically, I just read and listened and watched sort of everything I could. So lots of first person accounts, interviews. I read a lot of interviews of children of blind people, and I watched YouTube videos and just tried to learn as much as I could, basically.
And is that another side of writing that you enjoy as well? That kind of, because there's always a lot of people go, well, just write what you know, but obviously the reality of that is, a better way of thinking about it is often write what you'd like to know.
Yes,
because it kind of gives you an opportunity to look into a different world and different perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I'd say yes, write what you know, but have maybe a portion of what you're writing, something that you don't know about, that you'll enjoy researching, and obviously make sure you don't pick something that you won't enjoy researching. But yeah, no, I do enjoy doing a bit of research, and often with things that you're researching, you go down certain rabbit holes, don't you? And you keep going and going, and I do enjoy the research side of things.
Yeah, and then you realise you've not written anything all day.
Yes. Yes, quite.
So tell us a little bit about your background. So where did you grow up, and what's your kind of earliest memory of writing?
So I grew up in Essex, which is where I've ended up, but I have lived other places. So my went to university, then in my 20s I lived in Hong Kong and then London. So my earliest writing memory, I suppose, is at primary school. There was an essay competition to write an essay about it was the film Oliver. So we had to watch the film Oliver and then write an essay about it, and there was a competition. Mm-hmm. And I did actually win the competition for writing that essay. I remember going up on stage to sort of collect my prize, being quite surprised. And then really I've done, obviously chose English, so English A-level. Then at university I did film studies and literature, so 50% of the course was film studies, a lot of essay writing, and then 50% was literature. So obviously did lots of writing then. And then I lived in Hong Kong for 5 years, in my 20s, where I was somehow ended up being a TV presenter. and there was a lot of writing involved with that. So I used to write my own scripts and write up my own reports and everything. So, but I never had that dream when I was younger. Oh, I'd like to be a writer one day. It didn't really ever, wasn't something that I really thought about. And then it was something I just sort of thought I would give a go. A few years ago, and I just had that question in my mind. I wonder, do I have a book in me? Well, I won't know unless I give it a try. And then I soon sort of realised that I've got several books in me. Now I just have to just gradually get them all out.
Well, that's a nice feeling. Do you remember the first time that you kind of sat down with a view to do that? Do you remember the first thing that you tried?
Yes, so I did. I basically didn't tell anybody, and I was given a book. My mother-in-law gave me a book, which is The Other Side of the Story by Marianne Keyes, and that is about two female characters who are writers. And that's when I thought, I wonder if I could write something. So I basically just sat at my kitchen table when my children were at school and just started writing, but I didn't tell anybody, not even my husband. Mm-hmm. I just wrote and wrote. And then so before the 6 books that I had published, I did self-publish 2 books. But nobody knew what I was doing until the first book was ready.
And what kind of response did you get when your family kind of found out what you'd been doing? Your dirty little secret?
Well, yeah, they were quite surprised, and the word dark horse was bandied around quite a lot. The thing is, because I didn't know how it was going to go, or whether I'd actually would I actually even finish writing this book? I didn't want to sort of be telling everybody, oh, I'm writing a book, you know, and then waiting for sort of news that I'd finished it, because what if I didn't finish it, or what if it was absolutely terrible and I never did any writing again? So I just kept it quiet. But yeah, I'm really glad I did that, because it was the first step to, you know, what I'm doing now, which I love.
Do you remember the first time that somebody from your family actually read something that you'd written, and how did you feel about that?
I don't remember the first particular time. My husband doesn't read, so he doesn't read any books apart from maybe non-fiction books about football.
Yeah.
I mean, I do remember when he first read. So the first book that I had published with Harper Collins, HQ Digital, was A Year of Being Single, and he didn't read it. I think he read it after a year, and we were actually on the beach on holiday in Mallorca, and you know, I've got my romantic hero in that book, Richard, an American guy, very charismatic. And every so often, my husband Matthew would just look up from the sun lounger and say, "I'm Richard, aren't I?" And he just said it throughout the whole reading of the book. And I kept saying, "I'm really sorry, but you're not." It was very funny. I mean, bless him. I said, "I'm sorry." I said, "You have lots of lovely qualities, and you probably maybe share some of the obviously the romantic hero qualities." But I said, "I'm really sorry. You're not actually Richard."
It's
Yes,
interesting
quite
how
funny.
what people see in those things, as you say, you know, and it can kind of blindside you sometimes. As it can be negative or positive, can't it? I guess it depends on who it is and how they read into it.
Yes, yeah, but generally, I get lovely feedback from friends and family, so that's always good.
And what do they? I mean, you know, speaking personally, what do they kind of think in general about the fact that you do? Can they kind of relate to what you do in terms of how you go about doing it in the process? Because often I find myself, because nobody else in my family writes, that sometimes you feel a bit isolated. You know, if you're having a day where you've got a plot problem or something with a character,
Yes,
or
yeah.
even when it's gone really, really well and you want to tell somebody it's gone really, really well, and you can, but they don't really get it. Do you find that?
I agree with that, and that's why writer friends are so important. So I've got a writer friend called Mary Torgerson, who lives in Liverpool. So I've never met her. She writes psychological thrillers. We actually met through Mumsnet. So we were both on the creative writing board on Mumsnet, and then she messaged me, and we've started emailing. And she is my best writer friend.
That's great.
So we WhatsApp. It's kind of like we're office colleagues, really. So we sort of check in with each other in the morning. You know, how you doing? What you're doing today? You know, and all our successes and all our problems, everything we talk to each other about, and we talk on the phone as well. I just haven't actually met her. And I know when we do finally meet, it's going to be quite an amazing moment, because this has been quite a few years now. And yeah, we confide everything about writing to each other, and we're the first to read each other's work as well, which is useful because we're different genres, but we do enjoy each other's genres.
Yeah.
So we're not in competition with each other, and you know, hopefully we both give good feedback to each other. That works really well.
Yeah, that's great. So when you kind of mentioned, so you got you self-published 2 books, and then you went down the traditional publishing route. So tell me about that initial experience, that self-publishing experience. How did you find that? How did you go about doing that, and how did you find that experience?
Self-publishing, I just basically researched, you know, everything about how to do it, and then just did it. And it's hard to get the readers, because it's hard to tell people that you're there.
Yeah.
But it was just great experience for me just to do. So there was 2 books that I did and self-published, and then I wrote a 3rd book, and I thought, well, I'm going to really try and get a publisher for this one. So I sent it out, and so it was they were called Carina at the time, so it was which is now HQ Digital. So they're a digital first publisher. And I just got an email one day from my lovely editor there saying, "Oh, are you around tomorrow? Can I call you?" I was like, well, yes, of course I am. And yeah, called me and offered me a 2-book deal. So that's how I got started.
Superb. So not didn't go the agent route either. So just you managed to go straight to a publisher.
Yeah, not at that point. I've
Yeah.
got an agent now. Yeah. Not at that point.
And how did that feel when you got that call, when you had that initial conversation?
Oh, amazing. Yes, I was literally just leaping around the house afterwards. Because it was all quite quick. I think I'd only sent it. I think I'd maybe sent it off on the Monday or something, and then got the email on the Thursday. It was something like that.
Wow.
I can't remember exactly, but it was quite quick. So yeah, that was quite thrilling and obviously very exciting.
Yeah, brilliant. So how do you fit your writing around real life? I know from what you've said, you've got a family and all the rest of it. So how do you go about doing that?
So I've got 3 teenagers. So my youngest is at secondary school. My 2 girls are a little bit older. So basically, I write during school hours.
Uh-huh.
So I take him to school, and then as soon as I get home, I just start writing, and then I write till 3 o'clock until I have to go. And then often I'll come home and I'll write for another maybe hour when I get home before I then have to do my other jobs that I don't enjoy so much, which is the cooking and all the domestic duties. So yeah, I just sit at this desk basically for hours. I don't take a lunch break. I often go to the fridge for snacks. And that's what I do. That's what I do Monday to Friday.
And do you kind of just approach it like, you know, as you say, almost like going to the office? How do you get into the zone when you first sit down to write? Do you find that you can just go for it as soon as you sit down, or do you have little things you do to kind of get in the mood, or do you read what you did yesterday? How do you go about that?
First of all, I just kind of mooch around social media just to get me sitting at the desk, check my emails, and then I will just go to where I was the day before, and then just pick up. So I wouldn't read the whole of what I'd written the day before. I would just read the last little bit. But I jump around when I'm writing, particularly in the sort of the first couple of drafts. So I might think, oh, I'm going to do that scene, or try and do this scene today, and I'll just go straight to that. So I don't always work in sort of complete chronological order.
And so with that in mind, does that mean that you've kind of planned a little bit, and so you kind of know where you're going? Do you kind of map out scenes? Do you note down scenes, or do you just have a rough idea of where you're going?
I was thinking about this the other day because I have just started another book. So I was thinking that actually my planning process and how I start off is quite erratic. So I tend to write a really rough plan, but then I'm just itching to start. So I just go in and I just start writing, and I might write sort of 20,000 words of complete gibberish, and also jumping around because I just want to sort of get straight onto a scene in particular that I want to do. And then I think, well, actually, I ought to go back and revise my plan a bit, because by that time it's sort of changed. So I sort of chop and change, I go back to the plan, and then I carry on writing, and I might go back to the plan again and just keep reconsidering, does the whole arc of this flow. I do that a few times, and then I think, right, okay, actually start from the beginning sort of properly and go through it sort of methodically. But I'm a bit sort of all over the place at the beginning, notes everywhere, loads of different bits of paper floating, whereas on the actual document itself, I feel more organised, but there's a lot of sort of surrounding chaos.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but that's fine.
And do you write in Word or Scrivener or something else?
I write in Word. Because that's easier for me.
Yeah. Well, I don't know whether have you ever tried Scrivener? Because with the kind of process that you've just kind of outlined, it would kind of really suit it if you can be bothered to learn a new piece of software, obviously.
Well, that is the thing. That's exactly it. I don't know if I can be bothered to put the time in to learn it. I just want to get on with the writing. So I think I don't even really know what you can do, but I think you can just kind of swap around chapters and things quite easily, can't you? Whereas I have to do cutting and pasting and copying and pasting.
I mean, it is. I recommend. I recommend it to anybody to give it a try. Anyway, I mean, it's not for everybody. But having said that, I think the thing that puts a lot of people off is you assume it's got a really steep learning curve, and actually, if you kind of know, if somebody just shows you literally just how to set the first thing up, it's actually pretty straightforward. There's a whole thing sort of when you get to the end about trying to, well, not trying to, but like exporting it and making it a Word document. Again, it's not it's not complicated, but the first time you do it, you will be like, well, normally I would just go save Word document. It's slightly different to that. But what's great about it is, I mean, the kind of way that I use it is, you can use it in lots of different ways, but you can essentially just keep making new documents within the bigger project. So that could be a chapter if you write in chapters. It could be scenes if you prefer to write in scenes. And then when you've done this, and you can literally just grab them at the side and just, you know, if you think, well, that wants to go up there now, I can put that in there. Or I could equally, what I tend to do a lot of is, if something's, you know, when I go back, if I'm editing and I look at something and I think, well, actually, that's a load of old rubbish, or it doesn't fit in with the story now, I can just drag it down into a separate folder, like offcuts or whatever, and I can just have all that stuff in there, so I haven't lost it. You can save what are called snapshots, so that if you were editing and you kind of do a pass and you think, well, I'm going to push it more this way, you can take a snapshot before you do that. So if you don't like it, you can just roll back to the one that you did before. So there's things like that.
Mm-hmm. You see, but already my mind is boggling, and I think I would get into a bit of a pickle. I mean,
yeah, I know. It's probably because I'm going on about all the different things you can do. But honestly, it is one of those things. If you get, for me, I watched. I think it's when I subscribed. This is years ago now, but I subscribed to Joanna Penn's email list or whatever it was, and one of the things and one of the things that you got when you signed up was like a link to a little video that she'd made about how she uses Scrivener. It was really short, it was about 5 minutes long, and literally when I saw that, I'm like, oh that is so easy, that makes, and I just went, and that's basically how I do it now. You could actually
see. Well, I might have a look at that.
And I keep saying that I'm going to do a little something similar, a little video, because I do honestly think lots of people, if they actually just, you know, they got over that initial, it's really not one of those things where you need to spend hours and hours learning it. It's not. You could look, you know, I could sit down and show you within like 5 or 10 minutes, but it's just kind of getting over that initial thing. You look at it and it's like, it doesn't look like Word.
No, that's the thing. I'm really comfortable with Word because I just know where I am with it, and I'm just comfortable in operating within it.
But like now, for me, the idea of having like 80,000 words in a Word document that I'm having to copy and paste and move things around, and it just. Or doing it, you know, I know other people do it. Another way that they do it is they kind of have a different Word document for each chapter and things like that, and then they combine it at the end. But
oh wow, well that sounds terrifying to me.
Yeah, it does to me.
I occasionally have another Word document open that's got sort of notes in it. I might copy and paste the odd sort of paragraph.
Well, that's the other thing that you can do, you see, because there's kind of a few different windows that you can have, and again, you can have them where you want and how big they are, and you can also just hit a button like you can on Word that just makes the whole screen become the document. So if you just want to focus on what you're writing, you can do that as well. But you can have kind of like little floating windows that just might have 2 or 3 sentences about what this chapter or this scene is about. And it also automatically generates, if you want to, you can just click another button and it'll show you like a cork board with all your little Post-its on there. With like, with 2, you know, if however you want to do it, but if you've got like, you know, I mean, the way that I tend to do it is kind of, I try to have it like 2 or 3 sentences about what the chapter is, even if it's just so and so goes to here and get to this or whatever.
Yes. Well, I do that, but I just write that at the top of the chapter on Word. You know, this happens. But I think it does sound interesting. I will investigate it.
So, but a good person to check out is a lady called Anne. I think she calls herself Anne Rainbow, but if you just search for Scrivener Virgin, I think it's scrivenervirgin.com, she has got absolutely tons of stuff on there, and I don't know whether she's got videos, but there probably is a video, but if not, there'll be like an intro video on YouTube.
Yes, yeah. So do you think it does save you time?
Oh, it saves me loads of time, and especially it kind of what got me thinking, the reason I'm kind of going on about it with you is because when you started describing about hopping around and you may be writing out of chronological order, or I just fancy writing that scene today. Well, I've kind of started doing that more on the thing that I'm writing now. And Scrivener's great because I literally just hit the little plus button. It makes me a new document within my project, and I can just, off I go and write that, and it's there the whole time, and then I can
there,
go back to
then
where I was. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And you can also just grab it, literally they call it a binder. It runs down the side, and you can just grab that document and shift it to where you want it to be. Or like I say, take it out, or whatever you want to do, and you don't have to worry about the formatting and all that, because you kind of do that at the end and it does it. There's lots of different options that you want to, if you want to, and you can say in one go you can output a Word document, a PDF, and an EPUB, or whatever you want to do. That's especially if, obviously you're not self-publishing now, so it's kind of irrelevant, but if you're self-publishing, lots of people use it because it can output Kindle files and different bits and pieces.
Oh, that's really useful.
Yeah. And again, which can be useful if you want to have a read, if you're editing or whatever, and you want to read a draft on your Kindle.
Yes. In a different format. Yes, I always do that.
And so you can see it. So it's just things like that. So there's lots of things you can do with it. And I'm sure that you can, I'm sure I'm only scratching the surface of probably what it can do. But in terms of like me getting the most out of it for my process, I just absolutely love it. It's just makes everything so much easier and fun, more fun, because again, you were saying how much you enjoy the process, so I think you would actually get more fun out of being able to do it like that.
More fun.
I know, it's incredible. And it's not very, the other thing with it is as well, it's really cheap for what it is. I can't remember how much it is now, but I think it's like less than like £50 or something.
I will definitely investigate it, and I won't be maybe quite so sort of scared of it.
But everybody is, like I was before I gave it a go, and like so many people I know, and equally, I have spoken to people that they have given it a try, or they've had a little go, and they've it's not for them, and that's fine. I think I think there is a free trial as well. I think there's a free trial that you can.
Oh right, that's good to know.
So you can give it a go. But anyway, I haven't gone off on a big Scrivener rant for ages, so apologies. There was a stage. There was a stage a couple of years ago when like every show I would somehow get to mention Scrivener or whatever, but I haven't done it for a while. So you were the lucky recipient.
All right, thank you.
But so anyway, so that's interesting as regards your process. So, what do you think in general? What do you think drives you to write? It's a big question, I know.
I just really enjoy it, and I just find it really satisfying. So I just if I've had a day where I've written a lot and I feel some of it is all right, I just feel good, and it's just what I like doing. Now that I've discovered it, I just won't stop. I think I'd just say fun and satisfaction. I just get a kick out of it. Really.
Yeah, well, that's great. Well, that's really, like I say, that's great to hear. And kind of how, over the years, what do you think you've kind of learned from the first book that you put out there, that you finished and you put out there? Because obviously you've been doing it for quite a long time now. What do you think you've kind of learned over the years? What's different maybe about the process, or how you went about it from that first book to, say, the next book that you're about to start?
Yes, well, the first book was probably absolute rubbish. I hope that I've got better every time. I don't know, because there's so many different sort of facets to it, isn't there? The plot, the character, the whole story arc, and how your characters change. What I've learnt really, I suppose, is to just keep getting better each time, and just, I keep reading. I read a lot. I feel that every book that I read, helps me in some way. I've just learnt to kind of just keep going, and just try and improve all the time.
And obviously, for the last few books, you've been working with an editor. And how have you found that process? And because presumably you've learnt an awful lot doing that. And do you think, have you kind of noticed a change in that over the time? Like from the first time you started working with an editor to, say, like, your fifth or your sixth or your seventh book or whatever?
I find it gets easier and it doesn't. So it's always daunting. So you get the editor's notes, and it's, suggestions to how to improve your book. And that's always a bit daunting, because obviously at the stage that it was sent to them, you're completely happy with it. But I always do, you have a period of time when you digest what you've been told and have a think about it. And then I always end up thinking, oh yeah, you know what, you're really right, and this will make it better.
Uh-huh.
So, and then once I start editing, I quite enjoy doing that kind of, getting the scalpel out and going back in there. It does become easier in terms of you know that this baby of yours is not going to stay exactly as you had it when you thought it was finished.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, I'd say things like character, particularly things like making sure that your characters are likable. And just often it's just things that the editor will just bring up things that you hadn't really thought about. Just changes in the plot, character. But I've always ended up agreeing with my editors, and enjoying. I do quite enjoy the editing process once I get going.
And how do you find it? Because presumably before you send that version off, you write your first draft, and then what do you do? Do you leave it for a while before you look at it and start editing it again? What's your do you have like a set amount of drafts in your mind?
Before I
you
send it
off.
Place, I do about 10 different drafts. So my first draft, I wouldn't even call it that. I mean, it's literally terrible. I will probably change every single sentence of it the next time. So I literally just get it all out in what I hope is the right order, and so that I've got the word count and I feel it's all there. And then I literally just keep going back over it from the beginning about 10 times until I'm happy with it. And yes, I've just started a new book, and I know as I'm writing, this is awful, and I'll leave great big gaps. I'll put big crosses at places where I feel I haven't got time to think of what that word is, so I just want to keep going.
Yeah.
So it all kind of just rushes. The first draft is awful, but it's just like a rushing out of words,
the story
really.
Out.
Just getting it all out, just getting something down that you can then go back to and start sort of working on properly.
And were you kind of comfortable with that sort of really early from when you first started doing it? Because, a lot of new writers, that's one of the things that kind of holds them back, is they kind of never get to the end of the first draft because they're held back by this idea that, oh, this is total rubbish, and they can't get past that, and they can't get past the idea that, they can rewrite and they can redraft and all the rest of it. Or were you kind of comfortable with it right from the get-go, the idea of that?
I think, yes, I just think I don't get writer's block, really. I just put it all out there, even though I know I'm going to be changing massive chunks of it, and I just like to be finished. So I don't know. I mean, I was always a sort of very swotty one at school, and I think that's just stayed with me. That I just like to see something through, and I just keep going. And I know, with the first draft in particular, I know there's absolutely no way that is it, that it's going to be improved on, loads and loads of times. And I've just got to just literally sit down and do it until it's done.
And do you kind of approach it, what is a good day's work? Do you measure it in words, or is it just the, how much fun you had that day, or how do you look at it? What's a successful day for you?
So when I'm writing that first absolutely terrible first draft, it's the word count. So yesterday I wrote 5,000 words, obviously of absolute gibberish.
Wow, that's good though.
But I felt really good at the end of the day that my word count had gone up that much. Other days, I try to write, when I'm starting a new book, I try to write 2,000 words a day, and then I'm happy. And then later in the process, when I'm sort of doing my other drafts and I'm keep going through it, it would just be that I just feel that I've done enough for that day, and I feel satisfied with what I've done, even though I know I've got a long way to go.
Absolutely. So what, in your experience, kind of what's the most common mistake that new writers make, would you say?
I would say giving up. So don't give up. Also, I would say don't get too bogged down in detail at the beginning. Like I'm saying, just get that story down, because you can go back and revise, a million times if you need to. Just get to the end and then go back and look at it again and again.
Just get to the end. That's pretty good advice, to be fair.
Well, it works for me.
Exactly, yeah, absolutely. What do you think's been the most helpful piece of creative or inspirational advice that you've been given along the way? And that might not necessarily be directly related to writing. It could have been something that somebody told you in education or anywhere else. What's kind of stuck with you?
I think it's really, which I do, is to enjoy the creative process and don't worry too much about, how successful you're going to be at the end of it. Just enjoy doing it. Don't be thinking about success or money or anything else, because if you don't enjoy doing it, then what is the point? So I think people's end goal should be something that they've written that they're really proud of, and then everything else is what may or may not happen afterwards.
Everything else is gravy, as they say.
As they say.
Absolutely. Well, that's great. That's great advice, and it's lovely to hear how much you enjoy it, and that you're obviously continuing on the successful career that you've got. So that's brilliant. So as we kind of wrap things up, why don't you give us a sense of what's up next? Remind people about the book in terms of where they can find it and everything else, and where can people find out more about you?
So the book itself, obviously Amazon, all good bookshops, online retailers. I'm on Twitter, Fiona Jane Books, Instagram, Fiona Collins author, Facebook, I think it's the same. What was the other question?
Give us a sense of what's coming up next. I know you probably don't want to ruin the book that you're currently writing, but can you give us a sense of what's coming up next?
So I've written So my book, obviously, Summer in the City, is out. I have written my next book.
Yeah.
Which is, I would describe it as a kind of epic love story.
Mm-hmm.
So that's finished, and I'm now starting another book, which is also an epic love story.
Nice.
Obviously a different one.
Yeah. Yeah, not the same one. Not just rewriting.
Not the same one. Yeah, so that's where I'm at.
Well, it's great to hear you being so prolific and enjoying it while you do it.
Love stories, yeah. I love a good love story.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, it's been really nice to talk to you, Fiona. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, good luck with the book. But for now, thanks for coming on Joined Up Writing.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Joined up writing.
There you go. Thanks again to Fiona, and I'll put all of her links in the show notes over at joinedupwriting.co.uk, or you can find them in the podcast description or whatever device you're listening to this on. So that's pretty much it for this week, but don't forget to get in touch with all your thoughts on the show, feedback, and to tell me what's going on in your writing world, and you can do that by dropping me an email, wayne@waynekellywrites.com. Also, remember you can find the entire back catalogue of interviews on the website, so make sure you subscribe at Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Overcast, YouTube, or wherever else you get your podcasts, and that way you can have the podcast downloaded automatically every episode. Also, remember to leave us a nice rating and review on Apple Podcasts, as it really does help others to find the show, or just recommend it to one of your friends, because word of mouth is more powerful than anything. So that's it for this week. Thanks for listening. I'm Wayne Kelly. Happy writing, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.